Esteemed guests, welcome to the Agroecology Expert Panel of the 2024 GFFA, Prospects for Achieving Food Systems Transformation Through Agroecology. Our event is co-organized by the Agroecology Coalition, the Swiss Federal Office for Agriculture, the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture, BMEL, and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. My name is Jenna Tesdal, and I'll be your moderator for the next 90 minutes. I'm the director of YPARD, Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, a youth network with a reach of over 30,000 young people all around the world, building our capacity and advocating for sustainable food systems, supported in large part by the Swiss government. And we're part of the Agroecology Coalition, just as all of today's organizers are, and the speakers, because we believe agroecology offers promising solutions for a holistic but also courageous food systems transformation, one that is characterized by principles, 10 laid out by FAO, or 13 laid out by the high-level panel of experts, but whose uniting characteristic is to work for people and planet. So what's the objective of our event today? First, we wish to highlight the strengths of agroecology for food systems transformation. We will provide game-changing agroecological evidence on what works, including conducive policies which set the framework to make agroecology happen, but also how to measure our progress through an agroecological transition. Finally, we will emphasize the importance of cooperation to achieve bold change by highlighting the important work of the Agroecology Coalition, which you can join forces with. Today, we are honored to have opening remarks from State Secretary Flasbarth and a keynote from Professor Urs Nigli, which will set the scene for our discussion in 2 roundtables. At the end of each roundtable, we will take questions if we have time. And in our second panel, after our second panel, we'll hear a closing from State Secretary Bender. So with that overview, let us begin. I cordially invite State Secretary Flasbarth, State Secretary of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. State Secretary, the floor is yours.
Thanks, moderator, for this inspiring opening of this meeting here. Dear State Secretary Christian Hofer, dear colleague, dear Silvia Bender, my colleague here from agriculture in Germany. Welcome everybody to this meeting here, to this conference here. And let me start by saying that it is so obvious that the global food and nutrition system is under highest pressure. And that is reflecting the multiple crises we are sitting in. It started with COVID, then the Russian war of aggression, not only disturbing the energy markets, but very obviously also the food markets around the world with increasing prices in many, also and specifically of our partner countries in the developing world. The consequences are boosted also by the long-term, ongoing, not disappearing crisis like the climate crisis, the loss of biodiversity, the scarcity of water in many regions of the world, and the incredible loss of fertile soil, also not only on the African continent, but in many regions of the world. The consequence is that we have 735 million people suffering from hunger. It increased instead of decreasing over the last years, and the trend over these last years was the opposite what is needed to achieve our 2030 agenda. And let me underscore, not something nice to have. It's about the reality in life of people, and we need to insist to bring them out of hunger. It is very obvious that a transformation of the food and agriculture systems is needed. Sometimes painful debates, as we experience it at the moment here also in our own country, but it's not unique. It's also happening in other countries. But there is no other way. There are different tracks, but there is no other way than we need to create an agriculture and food system that is climate and environment friendly and resilient to a wide variety of potential shocks. This is reflected, this insight is reflected also in the Declaration of Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems and Climate Action recently at COP28 in Dubai. And it was the first time ever that sustainable agriculture as a link to climate action had such a prominent role at a climate COP. And I think we need to capitalize now on that. It's a declaration. A declaration is not action yet. We have various opportunities to follow up on the Dubai Declaration, as we will have during the year conference of the parties of all the three Rio conventions, climate in Azerbaijan, biodiversity in Colombia, and soil, let me put it like soil, in Saudi Arabia. And all of them are extremely relevant to play a role in the transformation of the systems. Agroecology is one of the very promising transformative approaches with its 13 principles. It offers a holistic concept to respond to all the crises I mentioned. It also promotes sustainable, diversified and resilient land use patterns, and it reduces, and that is what we experienced during or starting with the Russian war of aggression, it reduces dependencies as we had it, for example, in the supply chain with fertilizers. It also addresses social participation and fair access to resources, as well as a sustainable and equitable development of rural areas. That is why Germany, I think as a whole of government approach, is committed in general to integrated solution and specifically also to agroecology. BMZ, my ministry, has during the last year significantly expanded its support for agroecology approaches. Through our work in our partner countries, it supports agroecological projects on the ground, for example, in assisting partner countries in their efforts to protect and restore soil health through sustainable and holistic land use, and by pursuing global structural policy through multilateral cooperation. One important example is the cooperation and our engagement in the Agroecological Coalition together with BML, and also many of our partners in our partner countries are a member of this important coalition. We also provide financial support to the Secretariat to get the work run. In closing, let me highlight one of the conventions, which is usually a bit underestimated in my view, and that is the UN Convention to combat desertification, or the core soil convention we have. And it will celebrate its 30th anniversary this year. We will also celebrate the Desertification and Drought Day, hosted this year by Germany, in the UN city of Bonn. And it was a couple of months ago that I discussed at an African meeting with African ministers about the scarcity of water. And one prime minister said in this meeting that they are now desperately waiting for rain since 5 years. And my reply to that was, what a disaster if it happens to rain and then there is no soil that is able to capture the water and provide the benefits out of it for the agricultural production. I wish this conference a very great success. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, State Secretary, for your opening remarks. I think the commitment of the German government is so clear to us when we're having this discussion on agroecology. Next, we have our keynote speaker, upscaling agroecological practices to accelerate food systems transformation. Professor Urs Nigli is the president of the Institute for Agroecology. I invite you cordially to the stage to give us your opening keynote.
Good morning, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. It's a great pleasure and a great honor as well to give you some information about upscaling agroecological practices to accelerate food system transformation. Looking back at the UNFSS recommendation 2021, there was a clear commitment to boost, to promote nature-friendly production. And there were three important frameworks which were mentioned. First of all is to protect natural systems from new conversion for food production. So stop using new land and natural ecosystems for food production. Secondly, the existing agricultural area should be used sustainably, but also in a very productive way. And the third one is the restoration and rehabilitation of degraded systems for food production and ecosystem services. And for instance, it is clear that for the third aspects of actions, that there, for instance, agroecological systems are well suited to restore degraded food systems. The question is always, what do we mean with sustainable and productive management of existing land? So agroecological farming is one of these ways towards productive and sustainable management of land area. And it's already well described how we mean. It's an open concept, this transformation. It is described in 5 steps. It's not go, no go. It's not limited through a lot of bans and through a lot of clear paradigms. So it's really an open concept, and farmers can jump in and can develop and can, from step to step 5, apply all these ways of becoming more sustainable. And it includes the nutrition. So consumer diets are also part of agroecological transformation. There is a clear evidence in scientific literature that biodiversity and diversity in general, diversity of farms, diversity of landscapes, diversity in field, diversity on farm, that this is the clue for guaranteeing productive farming systems and becoming more sustainable. So all what we see as approaches for increasing, again, diversity in landscape, on farms, within farms, are a major step forwards to combining sustainability and productivity. It is important to distinguish between goals and the way to achieve the goals. So when we look at the different ways, we see a lot of approaches, technological approaches, but also farming systems, which are one way and towards the goal of productive agricultural system that utilize but not consume, deplete natural resources. So maintaining the natural capital is very important. And what we often discuss, like low input agriculture, like integrated production, regenerative farming, organic farming, and so on, this is not the goal. This is the way towards a goal. And it's important to distinguish between the two of them. If we go one step further, and if we include also the changing the food processing, food trading, retailing, and catering and gastronomy, and the individual eating pattern, then we come to the second goal, which is a societal goal, sustainable, sufficient food systems with a high proportion of plant-based proteins and less food waste. To achieve all these ways to become successful, we need a lot of knowledge. And among the sources of knowledge, we have traditional knowledge, we have farmer experience, farmer entrepreneurship, and but we also have science as a very important tool to achieve that. And we need also tools for making the right choice. So all these kind of tools are very important to improve and to maximize the ways towards the goals. For instance, 100% organic farming is not a goal. 100% organic would be one way, or a certain extent of organic farming would be one way towards the goal of productive but sustainable food systems. If we look a little bit more in depth into these ways forward, we see that there are a lot of pure technocratic approaches like integrated pest management, soil-less production systems, but also precision farming, digitalization. So these are pure technological solutions. And then we have quite a number of system approaches, which solutions which are based and integrated in a system, so like low external input sustainable agriculture, especially in the countries of the South, regenerative farming, organic farming, but also which might become more important in the future is advanced organic farming, including minimum tillage, mixed cropping, undersowing, microbials, biostimulants. So there are also many ways of improving each farming methods, being it organic or integrated farming. Then alley cropping, of course, and the most complex system, which is mainly applied in the countries of the South, are successional agroforestry systems. And there are many attempts, meanwhile, also in Germany and in Middle Europe, to establish agroforestry systems as well, and partly very successful. So you can see we always have to distinguish between ways forward and goals, and sometimes we lead quite dogmatic discussion because people promoting one way forward and being convinced that this is the goal, the solution, they start to argue a little bit in a dogmatic way. So we need, and I think this is very important, a lot of innovation to achieve agroecological farming systems. And among the categories of innovations, we have social and institutional innovations, which are extremely important. And we have ecological innovation or ecological optimizations, improvements, also very important innovation. And we have also technological innovations. And we see that, for instance, the organic movement, they have a clear priority for social and institutional innovations. They have a priority for ecological innovations, and they have certain concerns about technological innovation. I would position agroecology a little bit more open to technological innovation because it's not strictly regulated like organic farming. And I think that's important because in the future debates we will discuss about many different technological innovations like precision farming, microbiological processes, and also artificial general intelligence, which could solve a lot of problems or might solve a lot of problems. Recently, the Nobel laureate, Mr. Robert Solow, died in December, and he was the one saying that technological innovation is what has made us successful, and it's the basis of progress, the basis of growth. And it's clear that movements like some agroecological movements have certain skeptical attitudes towards technological innovation because it's linked to the idea of growth. And so whatever we discuss about future innovation, there is always the option that we can use it in favor of sustainable solution, embedded in sustainable solutions, or we could use it against sustainability. So this is a decision which every society has to make. What is clear for me that we need tools for guiding agroecological transformation, and in science, especially in Middle Europe, at many universities, we have developed brilliant tools for assessing sustainability according to the different dimensions of environmental, economical, social, and governance sustainability. And these tools should be given into the hands of the farmers, but also of the food processors and food traders, and because they could use really to optimize the sustainability of their activity. And so it is also how can we empower actors to act in a sustainable way. For me, this is a very important development, that we empower actors. And then agroecological farming is no longer a theory, but becomes a very powerful practice. And always keeping in mind, it's not an extensification strategy, it's the combination of sustainability and of a highly productive farming system. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Nigli, for setting the scene here. What I really took away from your keynote was that there are two distinct goals that we're working towards, an agricultural goal, but also a societal goal. You also emphasized innovation. And in our next roundtable, I hope that you will get some inspiration and also some evidence for innovation in agroecology. I would like to invite to the stage our first roundtable, Dr. Sol Oritz Garcia, Ms. Josephine Akialumbasi, and State Secretary Christian Hofer. I would invite you to join me on the stage on the sofas. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Our roundtable today is called Country Perspectives on Agroecology, Concrete Implementation Cases Coupled with the Importance of Measurement. We have three guiding questions for our panelists today. First, what are the greatest benefits of agroecology, either for your country or organization, as relevant? Secondly, what measures or activities do you use to implement agroecology in your policy or in your organization? And third, why is it important to measure agroecology? Why should we put effort into this? Dr. Oritz Garcia, I would invite you to answer our three guiding questions first. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will just briefly start by thanking the organizers, particularly the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development and the GIZ for having us here. Well, in Mexico, first of all, we have several planning instruments to promote agroecology and sustainable practices. In our National Development Plan, we have a very strong view on the importance of agroecology. And in this plan, the President has three main programs that promote agroecology. One is called Production for Well-Being. The other one is Fertilizers for Well-Being, and the other one is Planting Life, Sembrando Vida. Those are the three main programs that promote agroecology. And some of the benefits that we have starting to see and to measure are related with, obviously, the environment, the health for the farmers, and also they are getting more awareness on how to engage and how to, what is this interaction between what they are doing and the environment. So within these three main programs, what we have is getting this holistic view of the importance of resources like soil and water, and as well as agrobiodiversity. So we feel that with this approach, we are engaging in facing these three main crises that the Minister was referring to, which are biodiversity loss, the climate change, and soil degradation, which are also part of these three main Rio Conventions. So we see a link there in the promotion of agroecological practices. To go to the other question, in particularly, how are we implementing these strategies? Besides that, these three main programs, which have economic resources for their implementation, a main way to do this is with field farmer schools, and where the farmers know about these approaches, know about these practices, and the way they do it is with a very important dialogue between the farmers and the technicians. Is not just do this or do that, but what have you been doing, what has been working. And many of them are already doing agroecological practices, so it's not new for many of these small farmers. And the other ways that we are paving the way for agroecological practices and agroecology in Mexico is with the strategies. We have our national soil strategy for sustainable agriculture, which has many actions that are promoting agroecology. We also have another strategy which is related with pollinators and with genetic resources. So we are paving the way for agroecology, and we are constructing a certification brand that recognizes farmers that are doing farming in the way that is friendly with biodiversity. Actually, the brand is called Amigable con la Biodiversidad, which is friendly with biodiversity. And the importance of measuring this is key, because that's the way to make sure that what we are promoting and the way that it's been done is working. And is working not just in terms of sustainability and using less resources and having these best practices, but also in terms of the farmers that are benefited by having this way of producing their foods. So it's a way to make sure that what they are doing is something that they are being able to have a very dignified life, and that is better for them, not just in terms of their health, but also in terms of their pockets. And so productivity is also very important. That's part of our three main pillars in the sectorial plan: productivity, sustainability, and inclusion. So we think that in the framework of agroecology, we can reach these three main goals. So that's what we are doing in Mexico.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those really interesting examples. I think it's very clear the Mexican government has a very methodical framework for how you're going about promoting agroecology with strategies, plans, and programs linked to each of your objectives in the strategy. I also noticed that you haven't lost sight of the people that are a part of farming, a part of society, a part of communities, which is so central to agroecology. So really congratulate you on your work, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Our next roundtable panelist is Ms. Akia Lumbazi. She is the country director of Pelum Uganda, and she is going to share her experiences in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Way back home, we are a network of over 71 civil society organizations, and these directly work with over 3 million smallholder farmers. So in terms of our greatest benefits of promoting agroecology as a network, we have seen enhanced biodiversity amongst our farming communities. And this goes to show and improve in terms of the quality of the soil, the quality of the water, the plant, but also animal and human health. With the increased and minimal use of synthetic fertilizers and chemicals, we are seeing there's more life, there's more biodiversity when you visit the farming communities. We also have what we call agroecological model villages. This brings life to the society, and we believe this is a place where we do a lot of co-creation of knowledge, but also try to tap into the indigenous knowledge amongst farming communities. So we basically use the principle of participatory action research, where we have our farm organizations interact with local researchers from the ministry and try to test some of their innovations and put this to life. And through this, we're seeing that agroecology is coming to life. We are bringing more science and innovation into agroecology and agricultural farming systems that is not really visible there. We're also seeing our farming communities in terms of being more self-reliant and reducing dependency on external inputs. And this also goes to really attest to the quality of the seeds that they have right now, but also innovations in terms of using biorationals and biofertilizers, a way of improving their soil health, but also their plant. And we've seen this yield into increased productivity, but also in terms of more ecosystem services that our farmers are benefiting from natural resources. I'll go over to your second question. What measures or actions do we do? We have what we call the National Agroecology Actors Platform. This is built on the principle of participation, inclusion, but also trying to see how do we get together as a multi-stakeholder platform to influence policy processes. And through this, we've been able to influence a number of policies, but I'll only mention two. One is the National Organic Agriculture Policy that was passed in 2019, making Uganda one of the 4 countries in Africa to have an organic policy. And currently, we are also working on the development of the National Agroecology Strategy. So we're influencing policies and closely working with Ministry of Agriculture, but also other stakeholders, because this platform is representative of 13 stakeholders, including the youth, the researchers, the media, consumers, like our keynote said, that there is need for that linkage between the producers and the consumers. So this platform brings all of us together to build synergy and try to see how we influence policy processes. The other is getting into memorandums of understandings with line ministries. We believe this is very critical because it opens up doors for us to penetrate some of the policy spaces because of that understanding. Back home, we call it a marriage, because it's not easy to penetrate most of the ministries. But through memorandums of understandings with the ministries, we are able to have that relationship and build synergy. And they look at us as a partner and consult us wherever it comes to policy development processes and integration of agroecology in a number of policy processes, right from the local level to the international level. Like where we recently were very instrumental in informing the development of our position during COP28. The other is documentation. We believe if you want something replicated, it's easier documented as a reference point for the farmers to always look at it. And we do this in a way that is very less complicated. We use illustrations that the farmers will be able to understand, but also use replicable models. We have quite a number of models that have been developed in consultation with the members and the farmers on issues to do with climate change, on issues to do with seed security, on issues to do with gender integration and youth within agroecology, but also trying to see how we get this easily accessible and integrate science within. And we have what we call the knowledge hubs. Uganda is hosting one of the knowledge hubs under the Knowledge Center for Organic Agriculture and Agroecology. Moving to the last question, measurements. The experts in monitoring and evaluation will tell you, if you're planning not to measure your work, then don't do it at all. So we believe in measurement of agroecology, and we refer to the TEP, but also the BX tools to enable us see how much of the principles are being integrated within the farming communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing the perspective also of civil society. One of the main things that I took away from your intervention is also the key role of ownership of communities, of civil society, of small-scale producers. And I think that also came through from your interventions when you said agroecology is already partially being practiced in these communities and you want to scale them up and empower people. So I think that's really interesting red thread between both of your interventions. State Secretary Hofer, I would invite you to answer our 3 guiding questions.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I'm very pleased to be here and that we were able to hold this expert panel today with our Federal Office of Agriculture, together organized with the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture and the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development and the Agroecology Coalition. Thank you very much. And I think together we are committed to improving the understanding and the measurability of agroecology. Switzerland is committed to food systems transformation towards more resilient, inclusive and sustainable food systems. In our view, designing and implementing policies and interventions for food systems transformation have to be first innovative and done, secondly, in a way that is systemic and holistic. This is where Switzerland sees the power of agroecology as being able to provide the right framing anchored in, you mentioned it already, the 13 agroecological principles by the high-level panel of experts and food security and nutrition, and also the 10 elements of agroecology by FAO. Agroecology in its different components is not totally new. We heard it by Urs Nickli. Some of the elements we know already. But I think it has been brought into a renewed focus because of the need to transform our food systems. And in Switzerland at national level, we use these agroecological principles to ensure policy coherence and further develop our Swiss agricultural policy. Last year, for example, our government released a report of the future orientation of Switzerland's agricultural policy beyond 2030. This report takes two central elements of the agroecological approach. First of all, a food system approach, and the second, the optimization of nutrition cycles, and proposes measures along the entire value chain that link to the agroecological principles. Let me highlight maybe 4 examples what we're doing concrete. First, target agreement with retailers to promote sustainability in production and consumption and reduce food waste and food loss. So our Minister of Environment did such an agreement together with industry consumers, and they have to show till 2026 if they really were able to reduce it by 50%. Otherwise, the government says that they will really do some measurements by themselves. A second example is the strengthening the social security and protection for family members working on farms, especially women. So we have a new rule that we only give subsidy to farms if they have a risk and disability insurance. If they don't have it, they don't get money by the government. A third example is that the notification requirement for fertilizers, concentrated feed, and plant protection products that increases transparency in the use of environmentally relevant additives. So we make a system that where the sellers of these products had to put in to whom it sold what, and the farmer then has to show where he uses it. That makes it transparent of these additives and helps to really go ahead and to close the cycles. And maybe the fourth example is the initial considerations are being made with regard to the development of sustainability labeling for food products. We have 2 projects to label climate-friendly and animal-friendly products by a governmental level, to make transparency to the consumers that they know what is in when they buy something. So furthermore, the report was developed in the form of an intensive co-creation process, another key element of the agroecological approach. The main actors of the Swiss agriculture food systems were involved, from agriculture to production, food processing, and also civil society. Also, the 2030 Strategy for Sustainable Development, adopted by the Federal Council in June 2020, contains a reference to the framework to the furthering of transformation to the sustainable food systems in Switzerland and abroad. It draws on agroecological principles to enhance resilience of food systems. And last but not least, the recently published Climate Strategy for Agriculture and Food 2050 incorporates agroecology, for example, innovation, advisory, and research funding, as well as investment loans should be increasingly geared towards the transformation of the food system, taking into account agroecological principles. So we really try to take these principles in our strategies and also in the instruments we decide in our agricultural policy. While agroecology serves as a compass to give direction to food systems transformation, let me stress that we need agroecological indicators and monitoring systems to measure also this process. So the tool of agroecology performance evaluation, the tape developed by the FAO, that will present it in the second part in this event, aims to assess the impact of agroecology with a globally applicable and comparable method. And last year in Switzerland, this applicability of tape was tested in Switzerland for the first time on 21 farms throughout Switzerland, and also a new biodiversity index was developed. So the farms surveyed performed well in these agroecological principles, land and natural resource governance and social values, while they still had were very good, while they still had room for improvement in other areas like such of efficiency and recycling. And certified organic farms performed significantly better in terms of agroecology than non-organic farms. However, with only 8 organic farms and 13 conventional farms, the sample is maybe not representative, but it gives a little bit a direction. And we try now also a project that Urs Nickli started in Switzerland, that we really applicate this tape on additional 40 farms, that we really want to show how, if we perform on farms together with the consumers this agroecological way, how we will perform really in getting better and more sustainable. So I think we really have taken these principles and we really try to put it where it makes sense to get better in our policy and at the end in also the way our farms and our consumers are behaving.
Thank you. From your intervention, I think it's quite clear that Switzerland is taking the lead in an international stage on agroecology, but also looking inwards and taking the lead inside your own country for how you can improve, how you can create great examples of agroecology within Switzerland. So I think that's very inspiring and something that all of our speakers showed here today, that it's not only about promoting this in the international community, it's about also doing it ourselves. And so that's a message that I will take home with me from your interventions. Now we will go to our next roundtable for the sake of time. So I thank you very much for your interventions, and I would invite you to go ahead and take a seat in the first row. And we will transition to, yes, thank you very much to our kind speakers. We will transition to our second roundtable. We heard all of our speakers allude to the importance of measurement, to know what are we doing, how are we doing on it, and how can we do better. So this next section is about measuring progress, tools to evaluate agroecological principles and enterprises. With that, I would kindly invite our next round of panelists to join me here on the sofa on the stage. Thank you so much. So we have our panelists here. We have Mr. Rémi Cousset. He is the Senior Advisor on Agroecology at FAO. We have BioVision Foundation's Ms. Stephanie Pondini. She is the co-lead of policy and advocacy for BioVision Foundation. And we have Mr. Oliver Oliveiros. He is the coordinator of the Agroecology Coalition. Our first speaker is Mr. Cousset, and he will tell us about the FOAG tape tool, which we've already heard several folks allude to. Please share with us. If you would like to take the podium, please do.
Hello everybody. So I'm Rémi Cousset. So tape tool. Tape is a tool for agroecology performance evaluation. So I will quickly present in 5 points: the origin, the tape use, the conceptual basis, the results, and the next steps. So the origin, so tape was initiated in 2019 following the Global Conference on Agroecology organized by FAO, where agroecology was recognized by FAO as a promising approach for food system transformation. So member states ask FAO to provide global and harmonized evidence on the real benefit of agroecology. This is why FAO and partners with research organizations, civil society organizations, developed TAPE tool. It was a wide participatory process, 3 years of field testing, and the tool was validated in May 2023, so recently. So now about the use of TAPE. So far, data were collected in 54 countries. So representing 10,000 households, 60% in sub-Saharan Africa, but also in Latin America with 9 countries, and Asia and Pacific with 9 countries. But it was also, as we heard this morning, tested in Europe with Switzerland, Italy, France, and Spain. The first objective of TAPE, of course, is to provide global and harmonized evidence, but our partners are using it a lot on the field to support agroecological transition, to develop capacity of farmer organizations and farmers, and for project design, and for monitoring evaluation, as we could hear also. So TAPE is assessed at farm level, farm household level, but it can be aggregated at territorial level or national level. The assessment is done with a tablet or a smartphone. So now the third point about the conceptual basis, I will say. So we have 2 steps. The first step, we use the 10 elements of agroecology to characterize the level of transition. So we have a score between 0 and 100% of the level of transition. But the 10 elements, they are disaggregated in 36 indices to make them more operational. For instance, the element diversity, you have a score on diversity of crops, of trees, of animals, and of economic activities. Recycling is the same. Recycling of biomass, nutrients, waste, water, energy, and so on. So when you have the score, you can see the strength and weakness. And for instance, you can see the practices, but you can see also the social aspects, because a number of times in projects, the social aspects are overlooked. So it's a good way to re-equilibrate. This is the first step. You have the level of agroecology. The second step, you want to measure the impacts. So that's what Secretary of State Christian Hofer was speaking about, the impact, because we wanted to make a link between the level of transition agroecology and the impact regarding the Sustainable Development Goals. So we choose 10 core criteria to make the assessment easy to do, 2 or 3 hours on the farm, not more, on economic criteria, environmental, social, health and nutrition, and governance. And then we assess this with clear and precise questions. 4 points about the result, quickly. The first thing about the 10 elements of agroecology, resilience is a higher correlated with the 10 elements. It means that, of course, inside resilience, you have the diversification. Professor Nigli spoke about this. You have like diversification of production, of economic activities, local food systems, self-sufficiency. So yes, we can see that agroecology is strongly resilient. And regarding the impact, we can find significant positive correlation so far between agroecology and food security and dietary diversity. Same for economic indicators. We find a significant positive correlation between agroecology and productivity, added value on the farm and per capita. And also same for environment. We have, and this is important, it was expected, but it's important to demonstrate, a significant correlation with agrobiodiversity and with soil health. But we have to be careful with this, cautious with these results, because it was a pilot phase. So we have to consolidate to clearly see the context, because it's about correlation and you have many factors. So we just need to work a little deeper on this result. So now, to finish the next steps. So what we want to do now the tool is validated is to have a more strategic approach and working also with countries at national level. We are starting also to have a special study in Switzerland and in Ivory Coast to see how we can help the country to better assess the level of transition of agroecology, to show the evidence on the performance of the food system, and to see how we can help on policy recommendations. So it's not started yet, but it's our goal now to move from the project level to national level. fulfill the mandate we have from FAO. So, and then what will happen soon, I will say, we are going to create a committee of practices under the TPP Agroecology, the Transformative Partnership Platform on Agroecology, having e-learning material. A digital interface will be more user-friendly, and automated data analysis. The idea is that the tool become like more popular and totally in open access for everybody to use. So to finish, I just would like to acknowledge the support we have from Switzerland with FOAG and of Germany also with GIZ, because we have many work and project together. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it's clear that even in the development of a measurement tool, there is a participatory process happening. So even this could be considered agroecology. So thank you for your interventions. Next, I would hand over the podium to Ms. Pondini to tell us about BioVision Foundation's Be-Act tool.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to shortly present to you our newest tool, the Business Agroecology Criteria tool, the Be-Act. So why did we, the BioVision Foundation, think about the need to develop this tool? I think there is no doubt that the private sector plays a key role in the food systems transformation. But we felt we often look in these discussions at the big companies, the big corporations, but we somehow overlook the small and medium-sized enterprises. And they are crucial for food and nutrition security in many regions of the world. So we believe strongly that agroecological enterprises play a crucial role in the transformation of the food systems. But we asked ourselves then, but what does an enterprise look like that is agroecological? So for us, agroecological enterprises are businesses where its core commercial activities are in line with the 13 agroecological principles. And these businesses regenerate instead of degrade soils, biodiversity, climate, water, and health. And at the same time, these businesses contribute to a local economy, to healthy diets, to territorial markets, and they foster resilience. So what is the objective of the Be-Act? So it's really a tool that helps people to assess how much a business contributes to the 13 agroecological principles. And it measures the intention of an enterprise and not its impact. So that's also the difference to the TAPE tool. And what are the key target groups? So for us, the key target groups are investors, donors, and of course also entrepreneurs. But at the same time, policymakers and NGOs, civil society organizations working in this sphere. So how can one access the Be-Act? So it's a publicly available tool, and BioVision created a knowledge platform on agroecology. It's called the Agroecology Info Pool. And there you find a lot of evidence on agroecology, policy briefs that we also developed with FAO, for example, and a lot of other tools. So we have a tool section where you can get access and download the Be-Act. So it's done in a Google Sheets format, and you have different tabs you need to fill out, and I will just now quickly go through the main tab of the tool. So we have developed some screening questions, some red flags, because we felt it's important to also show, okay, what should a business not do, so to be not agroecological. And these screening questions are actually the same as used in the funds tracking tool that Oliver is just going to present shortly. And these kind of red lines have been defined in a big workshop with a lot of donors and also civil society organizations. And then there is this principal questions tab. This is kind of the heart of the Be-Act. So for each of the 13 principles, there are key questions that one needs to answer. And you can answer if an operation, if a business directly performs an activity or indirectly, because it's also important to know that there are businesses along the value chain that are maybe not active on the farm level, but there are processors, aggregators, also restaurants that can be called agroecological. So you can fill it in directly and indirectly. And what is also very important is there are 3 options. So you can say yes, an enterprise does contribute to something. No, but also it's not applicable. Because, for example, a processing company can maybe not really work on the ground. Or if you don't have animals, you cannot contribute to animal health. So you are not going to be punished if you as an enterprise are just not in the situation to perform something. And if you have then answered all these questions, you will get an overarching agroecology score and also a visualization in which principles you perform very strongly and maybe in which ones there is room for improvement. There is also a detailed breakdown for each of the principles. And then there are some suggestions for improvement. So the tool shows you actually the 3 principles where you score least, with some general suggestions how you, as a business, could do better. We also have developed an analysis how the business contributes to achievement of the SDGs. So it shows you where the business really contributes strongly in which area of the SDGs. And at the end, you can actually also download a visualization that shows quite easily where your focus is, where you're very good when it comes to the principles, and where you maybe could do a bit better. And we realized a lot of entrepreneurs really like this visualization because they can then also show to donors, investors, how agroecological they really are and why organizations, companies should invest in them. So last, where is this tool currently being used? Just to name a few. BioVision has established an accelerator called Nature, based in Uganda. And it's for enterprises in Kenya and Uganda. And this accelerator actually uses the tool to identify and select enterprises that can benefit from the accelerator, but also help entrepreneurs to become more agroecological. So I just showed you this improvement section, so how to become better. So that helps these entrepreneurs to become more agroecological. And that IFAD is using the tool in 3 programs in India, Latin America, and Africa. And the Alliance for Biodiversity and SIAD is actually using the B-Act in 7 countries at the moment with a focus on Colombia. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to questions and also some discussions.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you so much. I think we often get the question from our members, can my enterprise be considered agroecological? And so this is the answer to that question. So thank you so much for sharing. Next, I would invite Mr. Oliveiros to take the podium. He's the coordinator of the Agroecology Coalition and will share with us the finance tracking tool.
Well, thanks very much, and I'm happy to contribute and be with you all today. It's very exciting. It keeps us all warm with the to be all together here despite of the cold outside. Well, we've heard several times that the imperative to transform our food system cannot be understated. Our previous panel has established that, and that by working on agroecology, we're actually achieving the multiple targets that are linked to major global conventions of the Rio Summit: climate, biodiversity, desertification, but it's also very much linked to nutrition and health. So I think we really, really need to underscore that. And why is that so? Because it's all based on diversity, on resilience, and equity. But we've also heard that agroecology is not necessarily new. It is a trilogy. It is a science, it is a practice, and it's also a social movement. It all started as a social movement in Latin America. And so it is really new, but what happens is it persists because by default, and we've heard it also from our previous speakers, that it is by default holistic, it is innovative, and it is systemic. It is this principle of co-creation and participation and inclusion that allow agroecology as a framework, as a philosophy, as a perspective to flourish and to continue. But agroecology, as I mentioned, is not really new, but it's only just recently it has been gaining momentum and recognition. But what we also see within the coalition and many is that despite this growing recognition, the level of funding that goes to agroecology remains marginal, if not tokenistic. And so it is really important to see, and track where, whether donors and investors and countries are really putting their pockets where their mouth is. And we really see the importance of having various tools from the farm to field to enterprises to investments. And so the coalition, together with an array of partners and experts, including FAO and BioVision Foundation, came together to talk about it in this city, in Berlin, to say, well, what do we do? What kind of tool can we use collectively to track funding flows on agroecology? We've heard from TAPE looking at it from the farm level, the enterprises from BACT with BioVision, and now this tool is really trying to see where the donor money, for instance, is flowing. And so this tool was developed to really guided by, again, those 13 principles aligned with the 10 elements of agroecology established by FAO. It really is a tool and a framework to document the evolution of investments in agroecology to foster increased investments. We say that this is our target, this is what we want to see, but we're only funding this much. Probably there's a lot of a gap in there. So we wanted to have a tool that will show us that indeed there is a gap. It also serves as a guide to provide for project proposal development. How do you develop a more agroecologically oriented project when you respond to calls for proposals or develop your programs, etc. And it also guides investments in agroecological transformations. So visually, this is essentially the tool. As Stephanie mentioned, there are, like BACT, there is a tool level. One is to test whether there are some red flags, for lack of a better word, whether investments and funding of projects are really pushing for agroecology and not initiatives or projects that run counter to the 13 principles. So you have this first level of screening. And then you go to the next level of screening, which is really around the different principles of agroecology. So for instance, you have one here on soil health. It's a matter of auto-assessing in a scale of 0 to 2, with 0 being the lowest, how agroecologically oriented your project is. And on the basis of a few indicators there that will allow you to have a sense of, okay, is my project or initiative addressing some of these? So based on your knowledge of your project, you would say, okay, it's 0, it's 1, it's 2, and you could also say not applicable if certain initiatives or certain elements does not really apply to your project. And so you go through that across the 13 principles, and it will give you a sense of your score. And at the end, you will have this visualization to give you an overall perspective of how far or close you are in what specific elements or principle of agroecology, in the end giving you a sense of which areas to improve on, right? And then as well, you could, this tool would allow you to compare how your portfolio is performing with others. It's not a way of naming and shaming, but it's really have a sense of, okay, where am I, where are we vis-a-vis our peers insofar as this is concerned. So going forward, the idea really is to bring in and convince various donors to really use this type of tool that will allow a comparison across different funding mechanisms. But this obviously won't happen if we don't join forces across donors, across enterprises, different stakeholders to come together to really push for collectively on increased investments on agroecology. Within the coalition, we have 49 member governments, more than 160 organizations, civil society, research organizations, indigenous peoples, who believe in the transformative power of agroecology. So we would like to invite you to join us in co-creating the knowledge and around agroecology, in facilitating and advocating for supportive policies around agroecology, in supporting and promoting market pathways towards agroecology, and eventually fostering increased investments in agroecology. Visions and missions are interesting, but let's face it, we really need the resources, everything that we need to be able to make sure that we are translating and funding these initiatives together. So our common future essentially depends on the future of our commons. And we all see that with agroecology, we are able to address this, not only nature, the planet, but most importantly, the people. So we invite you to test this tool. It's publicly available. You could use a QR code to be able to access it online, free, obviously, in open access. Thanks very much, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know with an eye on the time, we unfortunately do not have time for questions. So I'd invite you to take your seats in the audience. But I think what we saw is that we are not alone in this effort. And so this is, I think, my last take-home message for you all today is that you can be a part of the coalition. You can use that finance tool to see how you're stacking up against your peers and use that as a motivational tool. For our wrap-up, I would like to invite State Secretary Bender to the podium. She is the State Secretary for the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture, BMEL. The floor is yours, State Secretary.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy that we have come together in this expert panel to discuss agroecology as a powerful lever to transform our food systems, because this is what is needed to achieve zero hunger by 2030 in a world that is currently grappling with new and well-known challenges. Thank you for coming to this event, for sharing your experience, and for being curious about other perspectives. Germany joined the Agroecology Coalition in June 2023 and is represented by the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development and my ministry, the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. However, the idea of agroecology is nothing new. We already heard this today. But it's also nothing new in an institutional level. It was established in the voluntary guidelines on the human right to adequate food exactly 20 years ago. These guidelines were the beginning of a series of further groundbreaking policy recommendations drawn up by the Committee on World Food Security. One of the policy recommendations was an agroecological and other innovative approach. Today, the expert panel and the contributions from all of you have shown that agroecology is a key approach to maintaining our ecosystems as a basis of livelihoods and the economy, to mitigate climate change and to protect biodiversity. Agroecology is an excellent model for the agriculture of the future because it's a systemic, holistic approach. It encompasses human rights-based approaches, good governance, participation and inclusion, and strengthens women and youth. It aims at participatory income-generating agriculture that creates employment and strengthens rural areas. It facilitates a healthy and balanced diet instead of fostering unhealthy eating habits. Agroecology emphasizes closed material cycles and the protection of ecosystems. It favors diversification instead of monocultures and relies on ecological practices to counteract the progressive degradation of land. It provides approaches to increase regional self-sufficiency in food while at the same time respecting planetary boundaries. As the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we will therefore in future only support international projects that are based on the principles of agroecology. 3 approaches are central in this regard. First, we are building on transformative collaborations with the private sector, civil society, and research. Second, we are involving all social groups in order to promote approaches that focus on women and young people, but also on vulnerable and marginalized groups, such as indigenous people and older generations. We are strengthening biodiversity and climate resilience by diversifying farming systems for the third. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that we live in truly challenging times and that we need to work together to face those challenges. This is why we choose food systems for our future, joining forces for a zero hunger world as the topic of this year's GFFA. Those small words, joining forces, are what is important here in order to reach our goal of a world without hunger. In times of increasing polarizations, it is even more important to build bridges, enhance contact, and build on common ground. Let us make sure we do that. So once again, thank you for joining this expert panel. Thank you for working together to make agroecology the powerful lever we need to transform our food systems sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you, State Secretary. Let us transform agriculture and society agroecologically. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the GFFA.